All right, I think we are live. So welcome everyone to another Matt Maran Motoring live stream here on the Matt Maran Motoring YouTube channel. So I hope you guys are all having a good week here so far. Thanks so much for stopping by. Like all the other usual Wednesday midweek live streams here, we're gonna go for 1 hour. I give priority answering. Then anyone does a super chat or a super thanks. We only got 7 people in here, so everyone's familiar, I think. So I won't go into the spiel here tonight. But I do want to say though, one new thing here. Let me see if I can get. Yeah, there we go. I have there we go. I have this sign, which some of you might remember from a long time ago. A buddy of mine made this for me, and I finally figured out a way to like incorporate it in here because I was thinking about putting it up on the shelves, but that's probably too far out of the way and out of focus. So that's a little closer. And so hopefully you guys can read it. It says on air, maybe not super clear. But anyway, I'm trying to spruce up the background here little by little. Also, the one other sign looks like it's going to be blocked by the chair here, but the one other sign is also able to be lit up. This drive-in sign. But I guess you won't be able to see that. So maybe if I shift stuff around, maybe we can get some more fun lights and decorations in here to make it look a little more exciting. I'm doing what I can here little by little, but anyway, I see Lancelot here as the first question of the night. He says, "Good evening, everyone. I hope all is well with you. My spots this week are a blue Hyundai Tiburon, a gray Audi RS6 Avant, and a green RS7. Very nice, man. You must have had a cool Audi meetup around you or something. That's pretty rare spots to see both those in the same few days. Yeah, that's cool. The Tiburon also, don't see those very often. So that's great spots. I didn't have really any unique spots here in the past few days. Aside from the car I'm driving this week, the press car I have is the Maserati Grecale Trofeo that is very exciting. So I'm generating spots here this week instead with that. And it has been turning some heads. It's been kind of fun. And also, Lancelot, thanks so much for gifting 5 memberships there. I really appreciate the generosity and happy to see. It looks like, yeah, YouTube's really doing a lot of new names here for the membership gifting recently. So that's great to see and hope that those new members really enjoy it. Jerry, thanks so much for stopping by too. He says, "Good evening, Matt and fellow auto enthusiasts. Spring is on its way to the western USA states." Yeah, and even here, the eastern half of the US, today was like a little over 70 degrees. Now, of course, Pittsburgh being bipolar, we're going to go down into the high 20s, I think, briefly next week, and then it perks back up after that. But it's going to be kind of all over the place here for the next month or two. But we're having some warm days, which is very exciting, and glad hopefully you're enjoying the warm weather there too, Jerry. And Mr. 705, thanks for stopping by. And Vishal, he says his spot is a Toyota T100. Nice. Not a lot of those around either anymore, so that's cool. And Nico says, got caught going 112 in a 60 zone, was facing stunt driving charge, 1-year license suspension, and vehicle impounded, and a 10 grand fine. Copper gave me a break and said, I put your speed down to 99. Wow. You got very lucky. Yeah, they don't mess around with speeding in Canada there. So, man. Well, so I guess when you're under 100, then it's less. I still thought it was like 15 or 20 over or something, and then they could still throw the book at you with like intense stuff, but you would know better than I would. But I had always heard that like even minor speeding was pretty bad in Canada as far as the fines and all that goes. But I'm glad you came by that unscathed. Hopefully you're doing 112 in a safe area because you that it's been a long time since I've actually gone triple digits not on a track. It's not something that I choose to do really anymore. But Vishal says that you see Infiniti could be reviving the Red Sport models. Apparently it could start at QX80 with 600 horsepower. Interesting. I hadn't heard that. I guess, is it just that Infiniti doesn't know what to do, to like copy the Nismo stuff? And so maybe they're doing Red Sport. I hadn't heard that name was coming back. I guess that's really the only thing they could use if they want to get their own version of, the Nismo Armada stuff. But with the QX80, there was already the QX80. Was it Street Edition or Track Edition or something? I don't know. Maybe the Track Edition. But they already had something like that. I figured they would have just kept going with that. But I was assuming, I mean, I guess Red Sport makes sense for if the Q50 comes back and we get it with the 400 horsepower again and the manual, you could have a Red Sport 400 kind of thing for the Q50 again. So, yeah, I'm not sure if that's, kind of the thinking there, but yeah, it'd be nice to see Red Sport come back, and performance and Infinity in general would be great to see. And let me see. Nico says if it's 40 or more in an 80 or less zone, or 50 or more in 100, so highway. Gotcha. Okay, that's more lenient than I thought it was, honestly. And yeah, Mr. 5 says, yeah, 50 over in Canada is the number that ruins your day. Interesting. Okay, well, 50 over, even in the States, 50 over, that's an intense. I mean, I feel like I don't know what classifies as reckless driving, and I think some states are different than others. So I'm not sure, because I know like in Florida they've been cracking down kind of hard on that recently too with a new law. But yeah, 50 over anywhere is going to be bad news bears. that's a lot over. But anyway, and let me see. Yeah, one other guy says not something to usually brag about, but he says he got lucky. Yeah. Well, I think that most of us have probably been there before and learned from those experiences, and hopefully it does slow you down there a little bit. And let me see here. Nicholas, thanks for stopping by. And Michelle says, thoughts on the Mercedes VLE coming to the States too? Yeah, which I'm kind of surprised that it's coming to the States. But I mean, I guess I can kind of see it making sense, especially because, again, that upper 1% or whatever, they are getting richer and richer. And I'm sure some of them do, find a van appealing. Vans are making a comeback. And so it's probably pretty smart of Mercedes to be the first and try this out and see how it goes. Now, I think they would have had an easier time with it if it was also gas, and maybe the US will get a gas version because they're using the same CLE platform, which you could easily, probably put in the same gas motor as the CLE. Wouldn't be very quick, but you could probably do that if they really wanted to. And it doesn't seem like they're scared of a slow version because the front wheel drive electric one is also pretty slow, it seems. So I'm still thinking we may see that, in the same powertrain mix as CLE, but yeah, I mean, I think it could work pretty well for them. And like I've been saying with trucks, I mean, the same thing applies to minivans. It's amazing that no one has tried a full-on luxury branded minivan here, especially since the Japanese, have a bunch of those, and China's got some high-end vans. So kudos to Mercedes for having the bravery to try it out here, and I hope it does well for them. It'll be interesting because we do have a Mercedes dealer pretty close to where I live, so I see a lot of Mercedes and people with some money around here too. So it'll either be everywhere or it won't be everywhere, and then that'll show that it really is a failure. Because around here, I feel like it would be a prime market for those things if they actually are a good idea for America. So we'll see. But yeah, it's interesting that they decided to do that. And Jordan, thank you so much for a super chat. He says, "Hey everyone, Matt, thoughts on the Cadillac CLR? Maybe you mean the ELR. I always thought ELR was really cool. I've never driven one, but ELR is, a coupe version of the Volt essentially, which I thought the Volt was brilliant. Also haven't reviewed that, but just the basis of it was a, Prius Prime way before the Prius Prime, and it also was a lot better. It had a bigger battery. You had, I think, 40 miles of electric range way back then. ELR, I think, was a little bit less, but yeah, it seems like a really cool package, and especially if you want something that's a comfy commuter that can do all electric driving. I don't know how the batteries are holding up on those, but if you can find one with a good battery, probably a pretty good buy. I haven't looked at pricing for them ever really, so I have no idea what they're going for these days, but that could be a really, really cool option for someone. I think they actually look really good too. All those Cadillac designs of that generation of Cadillac, I think, look really good. So yeah, I think it's a cool car. And thank you again for the super chat. And let me see here. So now other guy says we're test driving an ideal spec newest low mile Mini Cooper SE this weekend. Hopefully it's nice and they're willing to deal. They've had it well over a month. Nice. Well, now I don't know about where you are, but around here, a month for an EV is nothing. I hope it gives you some negotiating leverage, but I mean, there's stuff like even like my Fiat 500e, like that thing had been sitting for actually a full year. I think it was about almost exactly 12 months. That thing sat. Now it was sitting in, Kentucky. So, a little more of an uphill battle there. But yeah, EVs do tend to sit a long time. So, but regardless, yeah, I hope it goes well. I hope you're enjoying it. And yeah, SE, Cooper could be, a move for me after the 500e as well, if it doesn't make sense to buy out the 500e or whatever. I think the Mini could be a cool option too. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts after you've spent some time with it. And Vishal says, could this possibly motivate Lexus to bring the LM to North America someday? Yeah, I mean, I think it certainly could. I'm not sure. Is the LM, do they have an electric version of that? Because I think that's also part of why EVs are a little easier to bring over here, is because you don't have to certify for emissions. And at least I don't think you need to, like, I mean, you have to test, the EPA and stuff, but I don't think you need to do any kind of emission certification or anything like that. So I think it's a little cheaper to bring EVs here and kind of take a little bit more of a risk on them. But yeah, I think it's possible, that Lexus could maybe dabble in that. I think Lexus is always a little slower moving though, them and Toyota, they like to sit back and maybe watch some other companies kind of make the waves and then see where things lie after that. So I think if the Mercedes VLE does pretty well, then maybe a couple years after that, you could see, the Lexus come in. I guess they could bring it over a little bit quicker, as long as it passes crash tests and all that stuff, which I'm sure it probably would. But I think because it's already in production and stuff, it maybe would come over a little easier. It just would carry a big premium. I mean, I guess same with the Mercedes, because it's, going to have all the tariffs on it and all that. But yeah, I think they possibly could. And chat, thank you for a super chat as well. He says, any news with Tata Motors or Slate? Don't know anything about Tata. I don't think they're doing anything here in the States. Slate, they got the new CEO here in the past week or two. Who's someone that's not, I don't think, super familiar with automotive. They're coming over, I think, from like the tech and like entertainment world and stuff. I think they also did some stuff at Amazon for a while. No big surprise there, considering Bezos is backing Slate. But so new CEO, and I don't know how that's going to go for them. Because the former CEO was an engineer and a real car person, and I heard a lot of other journalists speak very highly of her, and like, well, with her leading it, it's in good hands. Now she's not leading it, so I hope that it still does well for them. I think the playbook's already set. I think everything's already just a matter of execution now, which I think is why they're saying it was better to bring in this new CEO to kind of take them that last few yards or whatever. So we'll see. I mean, again, if they can keep it under 30, and I think they're saying mid 20s still potentially, even without a tax credit, obviously. If they can actually get to that price point, then they do have something there, I think, so we'll see what ends up happening. It's still going to be an uphill battle because it's electric and stuff, but I think if the price is right, it could sell pretty well. And also assuming it's reliable and all that, which this is going to be a little bit of an unknown for a little while until people start getting some miles on them. Wheatman, thank you so much for gifting 5 memberships as well. I really appreciate your generosity too. And happy to see, it looks like, again, some more new faces. They're able to get those memberships. So thanks so much for that, Wheatman. Also for being a member for over 3 years now. I think you're one of the OGs. So I talked about this in the past couple of live streams too, but I'm still fishing for any suggestions anyone has for the new badge coloring. Same kind of design, obviously. But I like doing different colors for the different years. So if you guys have any suggestions for what color you'd like to see, let me know, and it'd be something I'll be working on here this week. So let me know if you have any thoughts. But thank you so much again, Wheatman. And also, Chad, thank you so much for another super chat. He says, with gas prices rising, could it help EV sales? Absolutely. I think there's already a few reports here this week of dealers saying they're having a bunch of strong EV interest all of a sudden. So, it's hard to say where this is going. I don't think this stuff's going to be resolved as quickly as the government thinks it's going to be resolved. So I'm in the camp that suggests this is we're going to have elevated gas prices for a little while. And so as a result of that, yes, if you need a new vehicle, I'd consider an EV if you can charge at home or at work reliably. That's a huge caveat. If you don't have that, then don't bother with an EV, and make sure you get yourself a nice hybrid or something instead to try and save some gas money. But yeah, if you need a new car, you're in the market here currently, I'd look at EVs because I don't think it's going to get much better soon. I mean, we have had gas prices kind of fluctuate, or oil prices, spiked and came back down, but gas is still going up. And it's more than just that strait. A lot of people think, oh, well, once they open up that Strait of Hormuz, then it'll be fine. But even if that gets opened up, which doesn't seem like it's happening anytime soon, because Iran just shot missiles and took down 3 cargo ships. Only one was actually in that strait, and the other 2 were just hanging out in the Persian Gulf or whatever. But anyway, they're going to be terrified to go through there for a little while. And then it's just the fact that they're blowing up all these refineries, these oil depots, all these places in the Middle East. I mean, they're saying that they're already way down on oil production now, in a bunch of these places, Qatar and stuff. I mean, it's a bunch of them that, and this is why they're opening up all these reserves to try and buoy the prices and stuff. But those reserves only last so long. And then you're still having production facilities that are now down and are rubble right now, and that doesn't get rebuilt overnight. So, I think once that strait does reopen, whenever that happens, you will see, a nice reduction in gas prices, but it's not going to get back to February pricing. I mean, probably, I don't know how fast you can rebuild a refinery, but if it's anything like a car factory or something like that, that takes years, not months. So I'd say that, February gas prices are probably gone, for the foreseeable future. I mean, at least a couple of years, possibly. Maybe some others will ramp up to try and, catch up or make up some of the slack. We'll see. But it's definitely not a great situation as far as that goes. And even just in general, even before all this, stuff that's been going on, if you want to save gas money, EVs are the way to do it. I can fully charge our, Lyric there in the garage. It's like $8, plugging it into the house, plug. It's always been cheaper. Now it's just that savings is even a larger margin. But even if gas went magically back down tomorrow to $2.50 or whatever, you're still going to be saving money even at that price, So I don't think it really can burn you, again, as long as you can charge at home or at work. So yeah. And thank you for the super chat. And let me see. So where were we here? So that one other guy says, on that increasing wealth divide thing, are brands like Ferrari having their best times ever? Yeah, pretty much. Ferrari's doing very, very well. I was just actually reading a report about it because it sounds like they're making a faster Purosangue that still has a V12, which makes me very excited. Add that to my dream car wish list. But they're doing a new Purosangue, but they said there's not really a whole lot of need to even do any new stuff for the Purosangue, because I think they said that the order books for 2026 are already booked up. 2027 is already mostly booked up for Purosangue. And then what's the other? I mean, yeah, there's a bunch of exotic stuff that's sold out for multiple years. Ruelto is sold out. Tourbillon, I mean, that's really extreme. Bugatti Tourbillon, I think, is already completely sold out already in the 2030s or whatever. But Ruelto, I think, is out to 2028, might even be further than that now. All that stuff is, super booked up. And, they also are kind of capping production. So that's a little bit by design. But yeah, I mean, the wealth divide, you guys can, look it up. It's very clear that it's, only improving for those people. And so as a result, all the high end stuff is up, majorly. Porsche had its best year in the US ever last year. Unfortunately, because of tariffs, they actually, even though they had their best record sales ever in the US this past year, profits were down a couple percent, I think. And they're like, it's tariffs. like, we're paying, we're not raising prices that much, and we're paying tariffs on every single one of these cars we bring in. And even if they're not giant volumes, it's just that they're saying we're importing 100% of the cars that we're selling in the US. That's expensive, and that hurts, the company. And Porsche, Volkswagen Group in general, they can't really endure much more of that. They've been really aggressive with cutting jobs, all this kind of stuff. But, at least as far as sales volume goes, Porsche had a record year last year. So lots of people, running out 911 had a great year, but everything, and we'll see how things change now with Cayenne going electric. But I think that more and more of those high-end owners don't really mind too much, because most of them do typically have multiple cars anyway. So, it's not a huge deal. I mean, there'll certainly be some that'll be like, oh, I don't want an electric one, but I don't think it's going to hurt them as bad as it will, some of the mainstream brands. So yeah, but all those high-end brands are having a great time right now. And Chad says, under Florida laws, I commit a felony daily. Well, I hope you keep it safe there, Chad. And Wheatman says, what is your take on the new BMW i3? Was it revealed tonight? I just saw like the teaser of the front end, but did they fully reveal it? Was today the day? Maybe I missed it. I thought it was like the 17th or something. But I'm excited for it, and yeah, it's gonna be good if it's basically just like the iX3, just in sedan form there. I like that, it seems like it's going to be smaller. That's going to be a nice step kind of towards, I would say, E92, E46 kind of generation. Probably not that small of a car, but like, just nice to see that it's not growing to be the size of the old 5 Series or anything. I don't know the exact dimensions or anything, but so that seems welcome to me. Yeah, I'm still not totally in love with the styling on, these new BMWs, but, it sounds like it's going to have really top-notch battery tech, really good efficiency. And so I'm cautiously optimistic if it's priced well, that it'll be really, really good. So I'm looking forward to it. And Nicholas says, great news, Matt. My brakes stopped squealing when coming to a stop. I think I burnt through whatever was causing it during my track day. Nice. Well, that's good. Yeah, as long as they're still stopping you, then I guess it's not the brakes telling you they need to be replaced. So I'm glad that you got it all worked out there. And Camille says, regards from New York. Thanks for stopping by. Hope you're doing well. And Nico says, cops are really well equipped here. All their vehicles have ALPRs, which are the automatic license plate readers. They've even deployed drones for surveillance. I mean, I think most, if not all, cop cars here in the States also have plate readers. And the drone thing's kind of cool. I don't think there's any drone stuff that I know of, at least in PA. But we do actually, like, there's some signs you'll see that says, speed monitored by aircraft and stuff like that. Every once in a while you will see a little like Cessna plane flying over, and it's like, is that one of the ones? Because they do fly like right along the highway there. So they can be sneaky with that sometimes. And that one other guy says, the Mini being used, I figure they don't want to sit on it too long. Already dropped price by 1,000, hoping to do another 2,000 better. Nice. Well, yeah, good luck with the negotiations there, and hopefully they do work with you. That'd be great. And Camille also says, do you like the 2027 Kia Telluride or the Palisade? I haven't gotten into the Telluride yet, unfortunately, so I've only have experience with the Palisade. So yeah, but Telluride seems really impressive too. And it's just gonna be different, with having the Turbo 4 versus the V6 and the Palisade. I just know the Palisade, the tuning was terrible, and I complained about this in my review. It would not give me a downshift sometimes. And so the motor just felt kind of pokey. I think for Palisade, it's hybrid or bust if you want to have an actual responsive powertrain. I mean, some people are fine with just something that's slow, and that's fine too. But Telluride, I'm hoping that turbo motor gives a little bit more punch, and just helps it to feel a little more spry than the boat anchor of a motor you kind of have in the new Palisade, unfortunately. And Michelle says LM is a hybrid, so I guess who knows? Gotcha. Okay, well then, yeah, it might be a little bit harder for for them to do that here. But I mean, they got the money, and if they want to take a chance on it, I'm sure it's going to really come down to probably how well VLE does for Mercedes. And Jordan says, if someone buys a PHEV with a fully depleted battery, is it dangerous? Will the vehicle know how to fully rely on gas only, and will the vehicle adjust mileage estimations? I mean, I think the battery is important to function the vehicle, but it's the same as whenever a PHEV battery is depleted just during normal driving. It always keeps a tiny bit in reserve so it can still function as a regular hybrid. And I mean, it would have to be decades and decades before a battery is so dead, as far as just usage, where that even like 1 or 2% that's needed for that hybrid operation wouldn't work. So 30 years from now, it's a good question. Right now, I don't think it's a concern for anyone buying even a 10-year-old PHEV. They will still have some kind of functioning battery, percentage that even if it can't do any electric driving anymore, like it should be enough to, do the basic hybrid stuff. And that's a worst case scenario. I mean, if your battery's in that bad of a state, I'm sure the car will be yelling at you to replace the battery, and you might get some faults and things like that. There's, and I don't think anyone would honestly buy a PHEV with a completely dead battery unless you intend on replacing the battery. Because otherwise you're buying a hybrid with worse fuel efficiency because you're dragging around a heavy battery pack. Even if the batteries don't work anymore, like they're still heavy, they still weigh the same, and you're dragging around, that extra weight that you shouldn't, be dragging around. So, kind of a fringe hypothetical, I'd say, but yes, I'm sure there's some programming in there to make sure that, it gets itself fixed. But again, it's just, I don't know how long. I mean, you might even go to 100 years before a battery, can hold a 1 or 2% charge from what its original charge was. So I don't think that ever will honestly be a problem unless there's a fault with the battery. In that case, the car probably just wouldn't run, because then if it can't use any of the battery because the battery's broken or it thinks it's a safety risk, it'll just shut that down completely. But as long as the battery is healthy enough to be used, it has some kind of functioning capacity, I think, it's never going to really be an issue. But that's an interesting question. Thanks for asking, Jordan. And let me see. Jeep Critter says he saw a Model T cruising down the road this week. That's fun. That's a really fun spot. And Nico says, I'd rather drive a car made from Legos than drive a slate vehicle. Fair enough. And Michelle says it will help EV sales, but plenty of people still can't ideally live with an EV. Yeah, and that's absolutely, the thing that I think, the better battery tech will solve eventually, because it's clear that the infrastructure is not going to get there fast enough. I think the batteries will evolve faster than the infrastructure will. So, if we were in a place like China where they're investing in the infrastructure and subsidizing it and pushing it heavily, we see these 5-minute recharge times that are now actually a reality in China with certain vehicles and certain charging stations. So they're already there. I mean, China, as far as EVs goes, they're already living in the 2030s. But I think that, in China, maybe you could make the argument that you could probably actually, treat it like a gas station and might not have a miserable experience. But here, I think that it's going to take so long to build out the infrastructure. I mean, it's still growing, and I just saw a thing, Mercedes, along with the VLE news, they were saying how they're still building out and adding, I think, another 1,000 stalls here this year or something like that for their own charging network. I think the goal is to get to 10,000 charging stalls by 2030 or something. So they're still growing that. I know Walmart's still putting in a bunch because they see it as a good money-making opportunity, and those Walmarts are already wired up for high voltage, so it's not as big of an investment to put those in the ground as it is some place in the middle of nowhere that's got to pay $1 million to wire it up for this high voltage and stuff. So there's still certainly some expansion. I know that the Iona charging network, they're just getting started, and they're going to have a big push this year. We just got our first one here in the Pittsburgh area, about 25 minutes away. I'm hoping to try out here at some point because they have NACS so I can avoid a Tesla supercharger and all these new EVs that are getting the NACS charger, because I refuse to go to a Tesla supercharger. So I'll eventually probably have to fast charge on NACS, and I'll go down to that station and try out the Iona for the first time here soon. But yeah, other than that, yeah, I agree. I think that it's right now you gotta have a single family home, with a driveway or a garage in order to actually have a good EV experience. And Dave, thanks so much for a super chat here, very generous super chat. He says thanks for all your hard work for us. Absolutely, David. Thanks so much for your support. And yeah, you guys just continuing to watch the videos is what keeps the lights on, so thank you all so much for every watch, every like, every comment, every share, and especially every super chat, every membership. All those things are needed now more than ever. So thank you all so much, and thank you especially David for the super chat there. And also following up, he says we need level 2 plugs where we all live, work, and while out running errands. Yeah, that would certainly be nice. And there were some ideas. I think like New York especially was talking about trying to tap into light poles, because those light poles, I think most of them are fairly high voltage, so at least do a level 2, or even a level 1, honestly, just like giving people a basic plug. You don't want to use your own charger, but just giving someone the equipment there and just having it in the light pole, even if it's level 1. If it's something where you're staying over a buddy's house for a few hours or something, you can actually get some actual range, and anything would help. Just being able to plug it anywhere, I think would help for sure. But I guess I heard that the light pole thing kind of got shot down. I'm sure it's just budgeting, because again, we don't have enough money for any kind of infrastructure building, any kind of social services or betterment for society, but we can drop billions of dollars a day in bombs. So anyway, I promise I won't get political here tonight. I'll try my hardest at least. But yeah, so things, cool ideas like that end up on the cutting room floor, because we prioritize blowing our money on other stuff. But Lancelot, thank you so much for a very generous super chat as well. I really appreciate it. He says Matt Moran the GOAT. I appreciate that, and thanks for going back. Lancelot, he went back and watched the my first car review here this week, the 2012 Subaru Forester, and he says you've come a long way, and I certainly have. I can. That video was probably not very great, but that's progress, is if you there was a quote, I can't remember who told me this, but they're like, if I think it was maybe actually Jason Camisa said something to this extent at one point, where he's like, if you don't look back at your old videos and cringe, then you haven't grown and you haven't improved, and so that man, that was terrible. It's like, yeah, well, things are better now, and I'm proud of the progress that I've made as a self-taught person on a shoestring budget here with pretty low quality cameras and stuff. I feel like I maximize things pretty well. So I'm glad you enjoy the channel, Lance Watson. Thank you so much for all your support. And I'm glad you enjoyed the video too. Let me see here. So Jeep Critter says says hybrid is still the answer in his opinion. Yeah, and I think especially for those people who do not have a single family home, or just road trippers, there's a variety of reasons, and I agree. I think there isn't a one size fits all thing. EVs don't suit everyone, and so I think that at least not without sacrifices. I think anyone could make one work. It's just the inconvenience that people are willing to tolerate, or lack thereof. But yeah, I think that that's why I love the way Toyota does things. They got something for everybody, and you have whatever level of electrification you're comfortable with. And Nico says it's $2 per liter here for 94 octane and about $1.69 per liter for 87. Yeah, I have no reference point because liters and gallons are different and stuff. But yeah, it's high threes. I think it's like 3.79 around here, something like that. So it's up, I think, about 60 cents since last week. So yeah, it's not great for those who have to buy gas. I'm thankful that we're not feeling that, because I never buy gas. Even the press cars that are gas, they come with a full tank, and I usually don't burn through more than that tank. So I'm very grateful. This is not my problem, but I feel for everyone that, obviously does have to deal with that. And Timothy says, can you do parody videos of other YouTubers on April Fool's Day or any special rare occasion? I haven't actually really thought about an April Fool's video in quite a few years because they're fun to do, but they never get very many views for me personally. I mean, maybe things will be different now because it's been a while since I've tried one, but they never got very many views and they're not evergreen. So it's a very short burn of, a day or two, and then it's completely dead. No one watches it after that. So yeah, I think there was one live where we were talking about a good April Fool's idea. This was months ago, I think, but I can't remember what it was. I should have written it down because I don't think I remember what it was. But if there's something that's very easy, like a low lift kind of, thing I can do pretty quickly, then it could be something, to do. But a parody video of other YouTubers, I mean, if it, I could do a parody of like some of my buddies because I mean I'm friendly with most of the YouTubers in the car space. But honestly, I'm not very good at parody, I'd say. If I was like roasting, I mean, you guys know I can go off when it comes to that kind of stuff, but that kind of, is less of a fool's kind of thing and a little bit more less fun, I guess I should say. But yeah, if I can come up with anything that's easy and fun to do, I'm not rolling it out, but I don't have anything planned currently. I will probably share my other April Fool's videos. I mean, I've reviewed like a golf cart. I reviewed a tractor, a 1950s tractor. And I pretended I bought a minivan one year. So there's a few fun ones there. So more than likely, I'll probably just try and resurrect those. But we'll see if I can come up with something new. And Waitman says, my suggestion for the 4-year club, Fiat 500 red or bullet green. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think so. It's green I'm trying to remember which one, because there's bronze for 2 years. It's the white for the 3. The 12 plus months is, I mean, I guess it's just maybe the regular like member badge or just the logo there for new members is the one that's just, the green of the logo there. But then I think it's whenever it's like 6 plus months, I think that one's just regular green too. But I'll also look closely at them again and see if there's any way I can kind of have it stand out a little bit more. Cause that'd be a cool idea. The Fiat 500 red's not a bad idea either. Yeah, I'll have to play around with those colors, but I appreciate the suggestion, and I'll see if I can make something work with those two. That could be cool. So yeah. Let me see. Chad says, I saw a Lambo being pulled by a U-Haul and the cover wasn't properly secured. I wanted to cry for the paint as the cover flapped around. Oh man, yeah, you would think someone would stop and try and fix that. Like, why would you keep having a cover hitting a paint job like that? That's crazy. Man, and that's quite the spot. And Jorge, thank you so much for stopping by. He says, just a proud dad brag. My 17-year-old who grew up helping me change roads, etc., did it again in a group that included 2 mid-20s cousins, one a guy. She's the one taking charge when they get a flat. Nice. That's awesome. Good for her for doing a flat tire repair there, or I don't know, maybe they just pulled the tire. I'm not sure what she ended up doing, but either way, patching or swapping on a spare is neither are easy jobs really. So that's awesome, and kudos to her for doing that. Sounds like you raised her to be very independent and being able to do that stuff on her own is awesome. Good survival skills and good dad too for doing that. And Michelle says, glad you got to review a base Jetta finally. A really great car for the money. Really enjoyed my 2024 when I had it. It's still in the family at least, so it's not completely out of my life. Yeah, well, hopefully maybe you get that back someday, although I know you said you're going to probably go for a Toyota next. But yeah, base Jetta is great. If you haven't watched that video, I posted it a few hours ago. Anyone else watching here tonight? But it's, yeah, the Cliff Notes is it's a really nice little car for the money. Maybe not the best value in that segment, in my opinion, but really great. And especially if you value that turbo motor and that punch around town, it's just so much more effortless than all the, more gutless, naturally aspirated four-cylinder stuff in that segment, which are still fine. They're all light cars. It's not like it's that slow, but like, the turbo I think is a real nice improvement to the driving experience with the Jetta. And yeah, I really enjoyed my time with it. And Jordan says, Chad and I just watched a doc about Saturn and the fact that Buick, Oldsmobile, and Cadillac were jealous of the sales and dealer and consumer positive relationships that GM actually killed it. Interesting. I mean, because Saturn was just another casualty of the recession of 2008, I thought. So, I mean, maybe there's more behind the scenes. I have to look into that. I hadn't heard of anything else. Because I also find that hard to believe that GM would kill Saturn because it was doing too well. I mean, I know GM is allergic to success and they really seem hell-bent on ruining themselves sometimes, but like even that seems a little bit of a hard thing to believe, but I'll have to look into that. I'd never heard that theory before, so thanks for bringing that to my attention. I'll have to look into that. Michelle says, we test drove a previous gen Palisade when we shopped for the TX. Good car, but my goodness, was it slow and sluggish. Getting back in our V6 Highlander felt like a rocket in comparison. Yeah, the old gen, at least the old gen to me, it was at least a little bit more responsive, but yeah, that's the thing with all these V6s. People love them, but they're very much, just the way the Hyundai does it, at least. There's not a lot of torque there. You really got to, push it kind of hard to get it going. And they're also, pretty heavy vehicles. And the new one's, much heavier, which doesn't help either. And also, I appreciate all the other super chats here coming in. So Jordan says a tour of an auto museum would be cool. Thank you for that super chat, Jordan. Yeah, there's not any auto museum that's super close to me here. The nicest one's actually in Hershey, PA, which is about a 3-hour drive, which I could do at some point. That'd be completely different content for this channel, and not sure how well that would do, but if I ever find myself there and I've got some time to kill or something like that, it could be a fun video to try and experiment with, for sure. It's always fun going to car museums. One of the coolest ones too. I'd love to get back to the Henry Ford Museum up in Detroit. It's so cool. It's been a long time since I've been there, so that'd be another one I'd love to hit someday. And Chad, thank you for a super chat. He says, anyone else find small construction equipment cute? Can't say that I have, no, but maybe others can chime in there. Thank you for the super chat. And Jordan, thank you for another super chat as well. He says, our battery-powered Ring doorbell lasts for 2 months. Maybe the big three look into that battery tech. Yeah, well, that's just the luxury of a very low drain kind of thing. I'm glad it lasts you 2 months, because we have a video doorbell too, and ours, I did the like hardwiring thing, so it's hooked up to the doorbell wire or whatever, because I didn't want to have to be bothered with charging it up and all that. But I think those just actually use lithium-ion batteries still, actually. But that'll be another thing people don't even think about really. But as battery tech advances, even though there's a bunch of money going into the car space, this will drastically improve other consumer products eventually too. Smartphones, we won't have to charge them for weeks. And all these things, doorbells, whatever, everything. If we really can crack solid state and get it cheap, I think, or even just the sodium batteries. I mean, there's so many different chemistries that we can do that are going to be, a huge improvement and make wires and people having to plug in all the time a thing of the past, for the most part. And thank you for the super chat as well, Jordan. And Juan, thank you so much for a super chat as well. He says, Homad, why do you think car review channels don't address reliability issues? I feel that would be a lot more consumer centric than manufacturers. So reliability is hard to give a definitive answer on, I think is kind of the problem. So, because this is kind of a complicated topic. And actually, Alex on Autos did a really good video. If you search like why he doesn't talk about reliability, or why something about just on Alex and Otto's channel, reliability. If you're not familiar with his channel, he does a great job. He's very analytical and he's extremely smart. And so he's probably gonna have a better take on this than I will give my download of here. But basically, the problem with talking about reliability is that one, that's an ever-changing thing. So first, I'm reviewing some cars that haven't even hit the dealer yet. Brand new cars, possibly even with brand new powertrains. It's there's no idea. And some channels do try and guess, like Car Confections. They do often have a little bit of like a reliability segment, and they do a depreciation segment, and they kind of try and predict some of these things based on historical stuff and just a brand's overall historical performance in those areas, which in some cases turns out to be accurate. In other cases, maybe isn't. And so, with other review stuff, like I can tell you, okay, this is exactly the fuel economy that it's claiming to get. This is exactly the power. This is exactly the performance. This is exactly how it feels. All these things are very much, I can tell you the second I hop in a car, all these things definitively and be reliable and credible with what I'm telling you. Reliability is all over the place. So even if it's a car that has been around for several years, okay, I know what it's like reliability wise for 3 years. What if it starts blowing up at the 10-year mark? What if it starts failing? But then I said it was reliable because it, was good for the first 3 years or whatever. So there's a lot of variables there, and reliability and saying something is reliable means different things to different people, and different people have different expectations for reliability. And you could probably make the argument for other factors or other parts of a car that, I make a statement and you could interpret it different ways possibly. But with reliability, like especially like people that care about reliability and are very adamant about it, you don't want to lead them astray and say, the prime example, we were just talking a couple of weeks ago, Vishal brought up that there's a growing number of issues with Toyota's 8-speed automatic transmission, which you find in a bunch of stuff. I think they said primarily it's more problematic in some of the higher power applications. But regardless, from everything we know, Toyotas are pretty reliable. Everything that uses that 8-speed automatic is pretty reliable otherwise. And I hadn't even heard about those reliability issues. But so if all these years I tell people, oh, the Toyota blah, blah, blah is super reliable, blah, blah, and then all of a sudden everyone's transmission starts crapping out left and right, all of a sudden that video immediately is inaccurate, giving bad information, and is leading people astray because they're watching this video. If they haven't heard about this recall or heard about this failure or this class action lawsuit or whatever the case is, then that video becomes problematic because I'm claiming something that I can't back up or something that is actually demonstrably false at that point. So that's kind of the problem, is these videos are evergreen. A lot of this stuff, I think it's like 30% of my daily views come from stuff that's been uploaded more than a year ago. And there's some of these videos that are 15 years old, people are still watching today. And so, whenever you are doing these videos and people are looking at these as used cars, I don't want to say, oh, it's very reliable here in the year 2026, and someone in 2032 is watching this and they're saying, oh, that thing's a piece of crap, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about or whatever. There's those types of problems with that. Also, reliability, is an anecdotal kind of experience for a lot of people, because there isn't a universal standard for reliability. You can count recalls, but I would argue that at least if it's recalled, then the car company is fixing it and it is covered usually by an extended warranty. So recalls aren't necessarily bad. And if it's a thing that is actually a problem on a car, then a recall is welcome. So I think counting by recalls is a flawed approach. I think that trying to go off anecdotal stuff and ask Facebook groups, hey, how many of you have problems with your whatever, that's going to be a skewed survey. Same thing with Consumer Reports. I think they're deeply flawed with their, they like to pretend they're the authority and they know everything about reliability, but they ask their subscribers. They ask people who pay money for a magazine every month that talks about how reliable products are. Those people are not buying unreliable products. Those people are buying reliable stuff because they like reliability enough to spend however much it costs for a subscription to Consumer Reports. That's also kind of rare, or very few people that subscribe to stuff like that in general anymore. Maybe it may have had a little bit more weight to it 10 or 15 years ago, or even 5 years ago, but now especially, like, their subscriber pool has got to be dwindling and skews that data even more. And the prime example of this, they just named Subaru the #1 reliable brand, when anyone who knows anything about Subaru knows blow head gaskets, piston rings. There's all these things that fail on Subarus. I mean, every single time my dad has had a Subaru that he's taken over 100,000 miles, he had to put multiple grand into the engine to replace head gaskets, replace the belts, replace all this stuff right around 100,000 miles. Now, the belts are a little more normal, but like head gaskets and stuff like that, you shouldn't need to. But he had to do full engine overhauls on both of the Subarus that he took over 100,000 miles. That's not reliable. A Toyota doesn't make you do that typically. A Honda, typically, I mean, maybe these newer ones would, but typically they don't make you do that, in the good old days of reliable Hondas. And that's, again, this thing just continues to evolve. I could say, oh, based on historical stuff, Honda's a reliable brand, but then the 1.5T motors are blowing up left and right. And I posted that whole video talking about how that's a terrible motor now. And that's due information. A year ago, I would have told you Honda's a super reliable brand. So this is always evolving. And, like any science, as you learn new information, you change your opinions on things. You change your stance on brands and stuff. If you're married to just, well, Toyota's gonna be reliable forever, and you want to, reject any issues that pop up or something, then, you're not being an unbiased reporter there. So all that to say, bundle all that stuff together. That's why me coming on a video and saying this Volkswagen Jetta is going to be reliable, or it's going to be unreliable, or it's going to fail you at 100,000 miles or at 200,000 miles or whatever. Like, I'm always going to be proven wrong. There's always going to be at least one person that gets to 300,000 miles in that thing. There's going to be someone else who has a blow up at 20,000 miles. It's just, and even if I didn't make claims or promises or anything, I never, at least I personally never want to steer anyone in the wrong direction. And so that's why reliability is something where I prefer letting people make up their own mind. And that's kind of where, the reviews aren't all encompassing. The reviews are a good starting point, but then, it's up to you to do the research of, what dealer in your area within the driving radius you're willing to drive to is going to give you the best deal, and here's the MSRPs and how they compare. But if you get $5,000 off on one and $200 off on the other, obviously go for the one that's $5,000 cheaper, regardless of how much better the more expensive one is or whatever, if price is your top concern. So there's a clear line where, the reviews end, and you kind of, it's on the viewer and the buyer to figure out, okay, well, this car seems great, but then my uncle had his Toyota blow up, so I'm not going to go for Toyota. And there's all those anecdotal things that feed in as well. And I see this in the comment section all the time. I have people that say, oh, why do you, why? Because sometimes I will be like, oh, this is, a really solid vehicle. Because sometimes you have that historical data to go off of. If it's a proven motor, then sometimes I will say in my comparison at the end, like, this Toyota will probably last longer than, this Volkswagen will, or something like that. And there's still some people that will nonetheless say, oh, this is terrible. Or even if I don't make a claim about reliability, but I just say, like, hey, I like the Dodge Charger, everyone's going to rush in and say, well, they're going to be unreliable and they're pieces of crap that fall apart and all this stuff. Even without me even claiming that, people are still like, well, why would you even review this car? Because it's complete garbage. And, so everyone brings in their experiences, their impressions, their biases. So that's why my job is to kind of objectively present you with the information. I tell you if it feels fast or not. I tell you how it handles. I tell you the specs, and then it's up to you to kind of go the rest of the way to make up your mind and form your own opinion on the car. Because I think that's important. That's why I tell people, test drive it for yourself, sit in it, check and try it out for size and all that. Because just because I like something doesn't mean you will either. So there's a lot of areas where I recognize the videos have their limits, and to me, reliability is one of those things. It's an appealing thing to talk about because people want to be reassured. People want someone to hold their hand and tell them it's going to be okay if you buy this car. Because it's a scary thing, because people are spending, aside from their house, it's the most expensive thing they buy. They want to be told this isn't going to burn you, but I can't guarantee that. But obviously some other car review channels, they understand that appeal, and so they will, go out on that limb, and say those things. But I'm not willing to put my neck out there for that and potentially mislead anyone. And so hopefully that a very long answer, but hopefully that answers that well for you, Juan, and hopefully it makes a little more sense, because it is something, most don't cover, and I think there's a good reason for that, honestly. But thank you so much for the super chat and the great question. And Jordan, thank you for a super chat as well. He says, do the Hershey Auto Museum. Viewers will love it, I promise. Give the insights based off the plaques and your thoughts. Nobody else on YouTube has covered it. Well, I mean, I'm sure if you search for Hershey Auto Museum tour, there will certainly be videos. I wouldn't be the first person to walk through there with a camera, but it'd be fun. Yeah, things like that are experiments. If I'm in the area, that's fine. But like, if I'm going to spend an entire day and, spend a full tank of gas or more, or full battery charge or more, or whatever, to go out there and back, it's, that's a financial risk and a time risk that, I'd rather take a chance here at home with another new video idea that I have or something like that. That's a little bit of a safer bet than doing something that's a long trip. I mean, that's why even I don't go on as many press trips anymore, because I'm not willing to take that risk, and that's a free trip. But yeah, I'm hoping to get to it someday, Jordan. And thank you so much for the super chat. And Chad, thank you for a super chat. He says our Fusion has over 200,000 miles. Runs perfect, 2.5, no turbo. Nice. That's awesome that, yours is treating you well, and I hope it keeps going for a long time more. And Jordan, thank you for the super chat again. He says, do it, Matt. Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, we'll see. And let me see. So we only got a few more minutes left here, so we'll try and get caught up on the last few questions and head on out here. So Nico says, imagine wireless charging roads like those phone charging pads. That is something that they're working on. I can't remember. I think it's the University of Michigan that currently has, or no, University somewhere in Indiana. They've got a mile-long strip of road that does have the wireless charging embedded into it, and there's already vehicles that do that. The new Cayenne EV is going to have a wireless charging mat that you have in your garage, and you just pull up over top of it, and it wirelessly charges. So that's already something that's happening. There's also another one. I think it was maybe Ram was planning on doing it for the electric Ram, and then they scrapped all that stuff. But they were going to do something like that too, I think. But I know in Porsche they're actually going to be doing it, and I think there's also some, again, in other countries that are already doing that. But wireless charging roads, that sounds like something we'll maybe get in another 1,000 years at the rate we're going with, again, infrastructure investment. It's just too expensive. That's the bottom line for that. The technology's there. It's totally possible. There was actually an experiment. I think it was an Israeli firm that they built a oval, like a NASCAR oval kind of thing that had wireless charging in it. And they kept a RAV4 Prime charged up so it could drive indefinitely. So, I mean, that's only a 40-mile range battery. And it was charging fast enough to keep that going and topped off around this loop. And they were just like, yep, we're just driving forever. We've never stopped to charge. It just keeps going and going and going and going. So, I mean, the tech is totally there. It's just, we can't even fix potholes, let alone put in high-tech charging infrastructure into a road for, a fraction of, or like the 5 cars that could actually use it. It's, it also, there's not really a need for it. Again, if the battery packs continue to evolve, I feel like that it's just going to be kind of overkill and not needed, unless we get to a point where, like, I don't know, we have giant vehicles that are enormous power drains, but battery tech, I think, is just evolving too fast to even have that be a problem. And Nico says a liter is a quarter of a gallon, so it's about $5 per gallon for 87 here. Okay, yeah, well, that's not cheap. So I guess you're pretty close to California there then with that. Then Chad says there's a newer Thunderbird for sale near us, and it's so pretty. Nice. Actually, one of the used dealers I work with has a Thunderbird that just came in of the last generation of them there. And I'm hoping to get around to reviewing it here this month, because I've always wanted to review one. I drove one briefly a long time ago, but I'd love to actually do a review of a Thunderbird. So fingers crossed, if it doesn't get sold before I get to it, I'll be hopefully having a Thunderbird review here at some point later this month. And Oh, Nico says actually $6 a gallon for gas. Okay, so that is a little higher than California then. And I commend you for your commitment to gas at those prices because, man, I would definitely. I'm sure a lot of people were probably switching to EVs at those prices there. And Mr. 705 says April Fool's quick rant where you rant about how much you love the new Prelude. That's a good idea. Okay, yeah, maybe something like that. I love that idea, actually. You may have just won the comment of the night there. I think maybe that's what I'll do. I may just do that. Good suggestion, Mr. 705. Decepticon, thanks for stopping by here. Hope you're doing well. Timothy says you should include more sarcastic takes during car reviews when you spot something off. I've been doing a little bit more rants about that stuff. Like I kind of just go off a little bit more. I did that in the Outback where I kind of made a few little remarks on the outside, kind of some little jabs, and on the inside I complained about the steering wheel. And I have kind of leaned into that a little bit more where I authentically can. There aren't that many things that truly get me riled up like that. And that's even why, like, I mean, the same thing I'm applying to the rant videos, the standalone rants. I considered like doing one on the new, Shelby or the new, not Shelby, the Dark Horse SC pricing. I don't know if you guys saw that came out. It's gonna be over 100 grand to start. But to me, that was like more of an eye roll. And honestly, it didn't even like upset me to the point of like ranting about it. So I was like, nope, like I'm not passionate enough about this. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to churn those out just to put out a video if I'm not, having that actual passion behind it. So yeah, whenever it calls for it, I mean, last year I railed on, or I guess it was, yeah, I think it was last year. Yeah, the Polestar 3, I was railing on that thing for the key and some other quirks of that car. The Rivian, I railed on that for the key being terrible and laid into them. So there's certainly times I never hold back anymore. Like I will totally just like be ruthless if it gets me worked up enough. But sarcasm is certainly something I could do for sure too. But yeah, there's just a lot of times there's just nothing that really sets me off to the point of feeling triggered to do that really. And I see, okay, Spaces is chiming in about the Prelude idea, saying a video entitled I paid 42 grand for a Prelude. Yeah, that would be a little bit too much trolling for me, I think, but me praising the Prelude and saying it's like the greatest thing ever, that I think that could be, that could totally be it. And Decepticon's gonna be visiting the Peterson next week. He can't wait. That's awesome. Peterson is amazing. Enjoy it. I know they have the new Fast and Furious display, right? I'm very jealous. I'd love to go see that. So I hope you have a blast and let us know how it is. And Chad says my final fill a flat personal station out of my trunk should be over now that the temperature swings have changed. Oh, gotcha. Yeah, all your friends hitting you up for a tire changing help. Yeah, well, hopefully that it doesn't continue too much longer. Let me see here. So also, Lancelot, thank you so much for your super chat. He says GR Corolla. So I'll take a sip of my water here. Anyone else drinking at home there? Cheers. And Jordan, thank you for a super chat. He says, would the ancients consider Bluetooth, solar, and Wi-Fi as magic? I kind of do. Yeah, I think there's this kind of veers into other stuff. I often allude to aliens and things like that. Sometimes it'd be fun to talk about someday on a dedicated live stream or something. But I think a lot of these things that back in the day were miraculous, crazy things they couldn't describe or explain. Now it's like we could totally explain that. And I think there's a lot of that stuff when it comes to possible UFO stuff, things like that too. Where right now we're like, how is this possible? And, all that. But it's like, one of my theories is they could just be time travelers and they're just further along. And it's like, we're the Neanderthals that are like, oh, what is that thing in the sky? And they're just like, oh, look at these dummies. They still haven't figured out what anti-gravity is or, whatever. I think that that's one of my leading theories for a lot of the sightings potentially out there is just, something like that, a very advanced humanity that's coming to be tourists every once in a while. Which also I think would explain why UFOs get very upset whenever nukes start coming up in the conversation and start becoming more likely to be involved. But anyway, back to cars. Jorge, thank you so much for super chat there. And he just says thanks. Thank you, Jorge, for your support as well. I really appreciate it, and for again also being a member for over 3 years. Probably also coming up on the 4-year mark here soon too. Thank you so much. And Jordan, thank you for another super chat too. He says, "What should the BMW i3 be worth now, 2026, as far as like what the pricing should be?" I mean, I don't know. I think we'll have to see. Because there's not a lot in that smaller segment. I mean, it would be nice for it to, at least try and match or undercut the Model 3, I think is the goal there. We'll see if it gets there or not, but that's probably because that's still, the best seller probably in that segment. So I think that's probably, what they should be aiming for. And let me see. So last few questions here. Where are we? So viewer S650, thanks for stopping by. He says, my S650 got totaled. Now shopping for a Mark 8.5R. Well, sorry to hear that your Mustang got totaled. Hope you're all right and everyone else is all right. But man, I'm glad it protected you, at least well enough that you're able to hang out and type here on, on a YouTube live. So that's good. And Mark 8.5R is a great car. Really enjoyed my time in it last year. I probably will get another one at some point here this year too, to try out again. And yeah, they're great cars. And Michelle says, I'd still like a Toyota next, but there's still a possibility to get the Jetta back if my family decides they don't want it after it's paid off. Cool. Well, I'm sure you wouldn't mind that either. And Brian, thanks for stopping by. And 5.0, the Superlux fan. Thanks for stopping by. And Jorge says, on the plus side, new car shopping. Right. Yeah, that's always a little bit of fun, depending on your circumstance and all that, but hopefully it can be an enjoyable experience to car shop there. Let me see, that other guy says, I started paying for a print car and driver subscription 6 months ago. That's great. I mean, I think supporting print media is very, very awesome and important. It's just, again, it's something I just don't think is very popular still, unfortunately. But good on you for supporting it, because I think supporting real journalism and real writing in this age of AI and, stuff being churned out, it's really good to, still reward the old school approach. Vishal was asking if I did any more digging on the Toyota UA80 issues. Haven't had enough time to yet dig enough into that still. So that's something I'm going to keep on, trying to find time for. I'm actually not going to have press cars for about 6 or 7 weeks here at least. So we'll see how everything plays out. I'm going to be going out and filming more used reviews, which will be fun. And sometimes that saves me time because they're usually shorter videos to edit and stuff. So I'm hoping it gives me some time to try and look into some of this stuff some more and do some more rants. There's a few other rants that I've kind of had on the back burner that I want to eventually kind of get into. So there's a few of those, and that's one of them that I'm hoping to do more coverage on here. Hopefully sometime in the next few weeks. We'll see. And then other guy says, on the Subaru reliability front, the newest several years overall have proven quite reliable. We're far removed from the EJ days. New Sub with the 2.5 and the CVT is boring and should last long. Definitely the EJ days are different, but I've seen some stuff about even the newer stuff too. The FA motors. So we'll see what happens. It just seems like the boxer motors, the way Subaru does them, they still just always want some type of head gasket, and but yeah, we'll see how it plays out. I hope it improves for them. If nothing else, the EVs should be more reliable that they're rolling out here, so that'll be boosting the brand for sure. Vishal says, my uncle had that 2010 Jetta 2.5 I mentioned, put 200,000 miles on it. No major issues. Had to fix a couple of leaks around 120. Other than that, it was great. They got a 23 Audi Q3 to replace it. Nice. Well, I'm glad the Jetta did so well for them. And that 2.5 5-cylinder is, a pretty solid motor from everything I've seen. So that's great. And Jordan says, we live in Florida. If I travel to Louisiana to purchase a vehicle and expect to drive home to Florida, how do I legally protect myself on the drive home? unless insurance works differently in Florida, here in PA, you're covered anywhere you drive in the country. So as long as you have active insurance and you have, I think it's like 72 hours to notify your car insurance company that you have a new car. So as long as you have an active policy on your old car, that still carries over and that still continues to protect you in those first few days. Now you should, notify them basically immediately, or even give them a heads up of, hey, I'm buying a car on this day, and all that. But anytime you buy a car, it's always just, you show your proof of insurance for the last one, and they send you on your way, and that's it. So that's, at least around here, but even with my out-of-state purchases, that's always the way it's worked. So I don't think you have to worry about that. And Dennis has a question about his Bullet. He says, engine light came on at 57,000 miles. Did this happen to yours? I hear it's common, and wondered if you had that happen when you had yours. Well, mine only got to like 20,000 miles. So if the engine light's coming on, I'm guessing you mean like a check engine light, certainly get that checked out at the dealer. Could be a variety of different things. Coyote motors, generally speaking, are pretty reliable, so I wouldn't expect normal motor wear to give you a check engine light at 57,000 miles. So it sounds like something might be up there, and hopefully the dealer can get that sorted for you. And also, Neil is asking, would you trade a Scat Pack Charger that you ordered new and trade in a Chevy SS sedan for a 25 C8 Z06 for 115 grand out the door? Is around 69 after trade-in. Would you trade both of them for the Z06? I would need a lot more context as far as, is this a daily driver? Do you have anything else to drive? What your preferences are, what you're going to miss about those cars, if you have more attachment to one or the other. There's a lot more to dig into there. I also would have to look at pricing to see what current C8, 25 C8 Z06 pricing is at, average wise around the country, to know, because I just don't know C8 pricing right now as of this month to say whether or not that's a good price or not, depending on what discounts are out there. So I need a little more time to do a little more research. I do one-on-one car consulting on my website, mattmaranmotoring.com. For anyone who's looking to, chat one-on-one, we can do a video call. I do a 15-minute one or a deep dive 45-minute one if you want to really get into all your options and stuff like that. So definitely check that out if you would like to talk more in depth about that, but that's just way too hard to say quickly off the top of my head there. So I'm sorry I can't help you there. If I was in that situation, assuming it's not a daily driver or something where you wouldn't have an issue driving the Z06 anytime, anywhere, because also seasonal stuff could, cause that to be an issue. But assuming there's no issues and you can drive it as much as you want, then I would say, yeah, the Z06 is a fun enough car. You probably wouldn't miss the other two cars. And again, as long as you're not losing your shirt on the Charger order or, on the trade-ins on any of the cars or anything like that. Z06 is amazing for sure. If you got the disposable cash, then I'd say it's a fun car. Now, how long do you plan to keep it for is another question. Because again, as far as reliability, all we have is anecdotal stuff to go off of, because no one's doing huge miles in these. But Jack from Savage Geese had his transmission go out in his. So just there's also that. How much unreliability are you willing to put up with for the greatness of the Z06? That's different for everyone as well. So, but just know that, it's a new engine. It's a lot of unknowns there, so just kind of hard to say definitively, unfortunately. Sorry about that. Dennis says he's got a Bullet with 14,000 miles or 2003. I'm not sure, because there wasn't a 2003 Bullet, but anyway, hopefully I answered your question there about the Bullet well enough. But let me see here. That one other guy, thank you so much for a super chat. He says, here's to real car tuber journalism and the 500E. Well, cheers to that. And thank you so much for your support, that one other guy. Let me see here. Last few questions and we will wrap it up. We're almost at the end here. Chad says he likes the new sign. I'm glad you like it. Yeah, I've had it for many years, but I just finally the other day was like, oh, I could maybe put it on the windowsill there and actually hopefully have it be somewhat legible. I don't know if you guys can actually read. It says on air at the bottom there, but just trying to spruce it up a little bit here any way I can. And also, I'm so glad to be Mitchell's here to join us for a drink for the GR Corolla. And C Striker says, "Hi, Matt. Hope all is well. What event did you turn down but later regret that decision?" That's a good question. As far as the media drives. I mean, I guess I slightly regret turning down the last year there was a GR Drive event at Sonoma, where it was the Yuzu edition G86. It was the minor little, like hardly any changes for the 26 GR Corolla, but I just didn't have a ton of information going into that as far as exactly what, because I didn't know like what changes there were going to be for 26. There really isn't any, but I was hoping I'd get those press cars quicker than I did. I still haven't gotten any of those. So it was the 86, the Corolla, and then also the Super Final Edition. And I thought I'd get all those three last year as press cars. Turns out I'll maybe be lucky if I get all three here this year. So that's one I wish I would have probably gone on, because I think those videos would have probably done fairly well. Yeah, it just Sonoma is such a pain to get to as well. I mean, I will endure a lot of travel misery, for the right car, and if I think it's a solid bet. And that one probably would have been, but I was just kind of on the fence, and I think I'd already been like really crammed with trips, and so I just kind of dropped out on that one. Yeah, it's just so many of these car companies love doing these trips in Napa and stuff, and it's anyone who's gone to Napa before, I mean, it's not an easy trip. It's, especially if you're coming from the East Coast, it's an entire day flying, and then you land. By the time you land, it's rush hour in San Francisco. Good luck. I mean, you're like in a car for another 2 hours after being on a plane all day. You're in 2 hours of San Francisco traffic trying to get out of there and getting into Napa Valley. It's a gigantic pain that I now basically, if a car company says media drives in Napa, it's almost an automatic no, unless it's something really incredible that I know is going to absolutely kill with views. And there's actually something coming up in Napa that I caught wind of as well. And I didn't get invited on it, and I could pester the company to try and get on it. It's a car that actually would probably do pretty good views, but I'm like, you know what? I'm not even gonna bother. I'm gonna take my risks on just waiting for it as a press car. It's just, especially, I mean, I'm not like I'm old, but I'm just getting to the point with just being so worn out because I'm so burned out with just working nonstop that I just don't have the patience to be doing that as much anymore. So I really favor the easier trips. But yeah, so that's probably the one in recent memory that I regret. That other guy says Rivian R2 pricing leaked. Interesting. I haven't seen that. I'll have to look into it. I'm curious what the pricing. I thought weren't they saying was supposed to start at 35? Maybe I have that wrong. Yeah, I'll be curious to see that. Thanks for the heads up. Let me see. I appreciate B. Mitchell weighing in there on the Mustang stuff there. The Bullet does have an open air element. You're right, B. Mitchell. So it could be something like that, possibly. I don't know. And appreciate your help there, B. Mitchell. And all right, Scott says, "Hey Matt, I bought a V6 Chevy Blazer. I've never really modded any cars I've owned, but I feel like I owe it an axleback exhaust to make it the SUV Camaro it should be." Agree. The V6 in those sounds pretty good. So putting an exhaust on it would probably have a pretty nice sound. Mods though, I hesitate to weigh in on because that's a very personal thing. I think you should totally do what is gratifying to you and what you enjoy. I'm sure you'd get a whole cornucopia of answers from everyone here if everyone weighed in. But I think that car modifications are very personal. So I think you should do it. It makes you happy. An exhaust, I don't know if that's gonna put it in SUV Camaro territory, obviously, but could certainly add a little bit of extra fun there for sure. I think that even just if you want to make it a little sportier, even, tire upgrade, doing some lowering springs, something like that could kind of be, cool first steps to make it a little bit sportier if you want. But congrats on the new Blazer there, and hope you enjoy it. And ZJ says, hi, Matt. My mother's in the market for a new daily, subcompact or compact crossover or smaller sedan, 50 to 75,000. Hybrid gas or PHEV. She doesn't do many miles and is open to leasing too. Any recommendations? So, I mean, honestly, at that budget, it's like, yeah, basically anything is going to be open to you in those segments. So that's a very wide net. I mean, if she doesn't do very many miles, honestly, even like an EV would probably be a good fit if she can charge at home, because just really, if you don't do many miles, then you're wasting money on oil changes every year if you're not doing enough to actually use up most of that oil there. So that's why EVs are a little bit appealing there. All the others, you're still gonna have to do the usual kind of yearly maintenance and stuff, regardless of the miles there. But yeah, it's, again, I'd love to do a one-on-one with you if you want. Again, mattmoranmotoring.com to kind of dig into this more, because that's just, it's impossible to say. It comes down to what her preferences are. Leasing, there's some brands that lease better than others. The European brands typically lease a little bit better. Cadillac does excellent leasing. So there's, some there you can, maybe get some better deals on just in general. But again, that comes down to the vehicle, because some brands have better deals for certain models than other models. But yeah, it comes down to, what her priorities are. Yeah, and feel free also send me a message if you don't want to do one-on-one consulting. You can send always a message on Facebook or something like that, and I'm happy to give you a little bit of feedback there too. Yeah, and let me see. Michelle says, did you see the Car Confections is selling their Camry? Didn't watch the video yet, but saw it in my feed earlier. I don't know if I saw that. Maybe I can't remember, because they know they do Telluride and they got the GV80. So yeah, I can't remember if are they getting another new thing, or is it just getting rid of the Camry because of the Palisade? I'm not sure, or the Telluride, I mean. But yeah, I haven't seen that, if it was just something posted recently there. And Adam says, hope you're doing well. Are you thinking about getting a new daily anytime soon? Nope. The Lyric lease isn't up until the summer of 2027. And the Fiat 500e lease isn't up until the summer of 2028. So got some time on both of those, and happy with both of them though for now. So we'll just have to see how things develop from there. But that's what we have going for us here right now. And Michelle says 2025 XSC they got last summer. Okay. Yeah. So I mean, that makes sense, to be flipping cars. That's what most of these car YouTubers do. They do a long-term test kind of thing, make a bunch of content and then flip it. He says the video was posted today, a few hours ago. Okay. Yeah, I haven't seen that then, unfortunately. So I'll have to check that out and see what they're planning on doing with it. But anyway, so yeah, we're almost an hour and a half here. So thank you all so much though for hanging out here. We'll be chatting more on Sunday night for the 2-hour lives. But in the meantime, thank you all so much for all your support, all the great discussion and questions and super chats here tonight. I really appreciate it. Stay tuned for more good reviews here, and again, more used stuff coming here later this month. So for those of you who enjoy those and enjoy the sportier stuff, there's gonna be a lot of sportier stuff. Keep my fingers crossed. There's some other cool stuff I'm hoping I'll be able to do here in the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned for that. If you're a member, I'll probably give you a heads up on that sooner. So definitely, if you haven't joined the Matt Maran Motoring Club, feel free to do that if you want to get the inside scoop on that too. But anyway, thank you all so much for watching this one. Have a great, happy, safe, healthy rest of your week here, and I'll see you guys on Sunday for the next one. Take care.